Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, September 18th, 2025. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week in the second half of our flight, Adam Ross of Twin Span Brewing shares 3 beers that are big and complex. Last episode, we sampled beers that were light and fast. This is the other side of that tasty coin. If you want to support us financially, check out patreon.com/basicbrewing, and many thanks to everybody who was helping out in that way. If you go to patreon.com/basicbrewing, you can see a long list of stuff that you can access if you sign up as a supporter. Financial supporters have already seen the video that I'm planning to release to the public on Friday. It's the one about Steve Wilkes' Ozark Hill Dog Stout, named in honor of his big dog buddy. That was a tasty beverage, brewed with flaked and roasted barley, deliciously toasty and biscuity. Supporters not only got the early release of the video, but the recipe as well. This past show, I mentioned that I was pondering brewing my 15-minute extract Saison recipe. Well, Matt from Aldie, Virginia, wrote in with this after hearing that. Matt says, "Longtime listener, love your show." Well, thanks, Matt. I've been binging you guys since I started homebrewing in 2012 at the insistence of my now wife. Well done, Matt. on the spouse choosing. Or maybe it sounds like she chose you. Anyway, we brewed all kinds of beers for years, all grains, sours, meads, and whatever you guys recommended. We fell out of the hobby when our kids got to an age where sports took over, but my wife recommended that we get back into it after a several-year hiatus. We looked for different fall beers and settled on a Saison. I consumed all your content on Saison. I listened to a dozen shows and watched several videos, and I landed on your 15-minute Saison recipe from a video. Then, by chance, your most recent episode popped up on my playlist a day later, and lo and behold, you said you wanted to revisit that exact recipe for a fall beer. It's too much of a coincidence, so I thought I'd share my Basic Brew fall Saison-inspired recipe. Matt says, equal parts Pilsner and Bavarian wheat liquid malt extract. Hopping with Laurel at the recommendation of Mike Tonsmeyer. I'm pitching with a yeast from Omega, strain of Saison with some bugs. And based on an earlier Saison tasting you did, I'm aging it with wine-soaked French oak staves. We're from Virginia, so we do Cab Franc really well, and I get a lot of the mustiness that I love from Brett beers from it, so we're soaking the staves in that before adding to the secondary, hoping it turns out great for the fall. Wow! That sounds really delicious, Matt. I wonder if I should put some oak in my Saison. What a fun coincidence! And to to prove that we're on the same brewing wavelength, Matt, I also brewed my 15-minute Saison with Pilsen Light and Bavarian wheat liquid malt extract. I changed up the recipe a little bit, and lo and behold, we brewed the same thing. I added a pound of clear candy syrup to mine. The hops that I used were German Mandarina Bavaria, 2 ounces or 56 grams at the start of that 15-minute boil, and another ounce or 28 grams at flame out. I pitched Imperial B54 Napoleon with no starter on mine, and the airlock smelled great, and I'm really looking forward to sampling that one. And speaking of our friends and sponsors at Imperial Yeast, Imperial's seasonal L2 Fest lager strain is here to help you brew the perfect Märzen, Bock, or Fest beer. This highly flocculent strain creates bright malt-forward lagers, or anyway, with a clean finish. Fest is a seasonal strain, so be sure to get your hands on it as soon as you can, so you can be sampling deliciously malty lagers while you watch the leaves change and the temperatures fall. If you live somewhere where that happens, I can't wait myself for the change of the season. You know we love Imperial Yeast with 200 billion cells in each easy-to-open pouch. My stir plate is dusty because I don't use it anymore to make starters for moderate gravity 5-gallon ale batches, and a lot of time for lagers, too, depending. Ask your local homebrew store about LO2 Fest from Imperial Yeast and check out all the dependable deliciousness at imperialyeast.com. It's imperialyeast.com. Okay, we saved the bigger beers from the six-pack from Twin Span. We saved them for last in our tasting with Adam from Twin Span Brewing up in Bettendorf, Iowa. Buckle up. Adam Ross, welcome back to Basic Brewing Radio.
Happy to be back, James.
Chris Colby, author of the Homebrew Recipe Bible, Methods of Modern Home Brewing, How to Brew Hard Seltzer, and many other articles that you read all over everywhere. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me on the show, James.
And Scott Housel. I didn't brag very much about your homebrewing, just because you're just quote unquote a home brewer doesn't mean that you're not an excellent brewer. Every beer that I've had that you've brewed is excellent. So welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much. I can't wait to send you the next ones because I'm real happy.
Woohoo!
Oh,
I'm all for that. This is the second part of the tasting. And I've managed to pace myself so that I can still speak at the beginning of this this one. But we just tasted three delicious, sort of, I guess, light and easy, relatively, beers from Twin Span Brewing up in Bettendorf, Iowa, where Adam is the head brewer and part owner of the establishment. And this half of the show, or this half of the this limited series, Adam, we're going to move into more kind of if the first one was quick and easy, how do we describe this half?
Ponderous and abusive. These are beers that are just, I believe in yin and yang. You know, you got to balance things out. I don't want my tap rail to just be easy drinking beers, and I don't want them to just be big, punchy in the face beers either. So, this is the other half of the equation from earlier.
Now, the first beer that we're sampling is called 1890 IPA.
yeah, because I'm really creative with names.
So, I assume this is a reference to a historical reference of some sort.
Yeah, so I've gotten a little bit of a reputation for being the brewer, at least around here, who'll try his hand at older recipes. We had a beer that two of you have tasted, American Vice, I called it, and it was an American Vice beer, an extinct style that kind of died off around Prohibition. So I got super deep into researching local recipes and brewing in that era. And when it came time to brew this late 19th century recipe, I kind of landed on 1890 because that was the period around here that I was really familiar with. But the recipe itself actually comes from 1876. And I won't list the entire recipe because it is printed in the excellent IPA book from Mitch Steele. It is the Ballantine #1 recipe with a few Twin Span modifications. The base malt, I'll just throw it out there because I did deviate from the recipe. The base malt is a mix of Six Row and Chevalier. And at CBC earlier this year, I talked to the maltsters at RAR and at, I think it's Crisp, who makes UK group that makes Chevalier. And they're like, yeah, this is absolutely a blend of that would be very close to what people were brewing with at that time period. So I'm happy with my little modification to the recipe there.
Wow, the hop aroma is very prominent. And also I'm getting a lot of breadiness from the malt as well. It smells delicious. It's, according to the can, 7.4%. It's quite a departure from what we've been tasting, which were, light and easy drinking beers. I want to savor this beer because there's just so much going on. I get a lot of peppery notes, a along with the kind of the sweetness of the malt and the it does feel, maybe I'm being influenced by the name of the beer, but it does feel kind of old fashioned. It does feel like it's something that you would maybe expect to taste if you wandered into a pub, at the turn of the century back in 1890. It's very satisfying and very complex.
Yeah, it pours clear, nearly crystal clear. Uh, there was decent foam. Um, very a nice assertive bitterness in the flavor, and the nice hoppiness in the aroma. And yeah, it's a good, quote unquote serious IPA if you like sort of, what are the West Coast IPAs of the day. This is like the precursor to that.
Mm.
It's funny because this is very East Coast. This is New York, upstate New York.
I taste this is not like piney and juicy. I mean, grapefruity. This to
No.
me, there's a lot of darker. There's almost like a slight like licoricey, anisey kind of. This to me, the hop character is kind of whereas I think of like for instance, a New England IPA or a West Coast cascadey thing. Those are kind of like a bright and citrusy, and all those are kind of like the upper notes of the flavor spectrum. This is like down on the lower end, and it's kind of I'm digging it, as the kids say nowadays. That this is, and maybe that's why I think it's kind of like an old fashioned kind of a thing. That it's like dark and kind of rich in its flavor components. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, it reminds me of the first time a long time ago that I had an IPA, and I was like, this is something different. This is a different beer, and that's what this reminds me of. And yeah, it's not hitting hard with citrusy or tropical. Um, it's just kind of hoppy with like the bitterness is really nice. Anything, I guess you could go a little herbal and maybe a little
Mm.
grassy from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just really reminds me of a long time ago when I had my first IPA.
So Adam, talk about the hops. I mean, what are the hops that are in here, and how did you use them in the beer?
So for pretty much every beer you've ever had from me, I use German Magnum for bittering. I wanted to stick to the recipe here, so there is a stupid amount of Goldings used for bitterness.
Ah.
There is a um, Brewer's Gold, Boolean, and then which are hops I've never used before, and they were annoyingly expensive.
Mm.
Even though they're hops that like when I first started homebrewing, people were talking about these hops, and they're like, "Tsk, only the old timers use those. What are you doing?" So then now at this point, they're expensive to source. And then around this time, what I hear was quite common was hop extracts. So hop oil extracts. So I did use a CO2 extract. I think they probably would have used the distilled extract at the time. But I used Galena hop extract in the flame out, um, which is gonna probably was just throwing the like what is that flavor
Mm.
contribute to that. Um, but otherwise, the grist, like I said, the recipe's out there. It is six row Chevalier. It is a significant portion of corn. There is some dark crystal malt, and then looking at the recipe right now, there's a lot going on in this beer. This felt like a homebrew beer because there's like six grains, all these hops. They're done at 60, 30, 15, and 0 minutes. Um, Calculated IBUs are like 80. So the BUGU is actually like over one. So it's
Wow.
like it is tipped over and it is aggressively bitter. Historically, they would age this for a year before serving, is what the notes say. This beer is um, you're getting it about 6 months old. Um, we actually sold
Huh.
out our kegs fairly quickly, but we canned a lot, so I think there will be an opportunity for me to try some cans after aging a year.
So did you dry hop?
That's a great question, James.
Because
Yes,
the hop aroma was very fresh.
there's some more Goldings that were added at dry hopping.
Yeah, this, and I mean this as a compliment, but this tastes like it's right up Steve Wilkes's alley because he still likes to brew, like IPAs or pale ales, and in the tradition that when we first started brewing, coming up on 30 years ago, it was you added your hops at 60 minutes, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, and maybe 5 minutes if you were being adventurous. And so it's got that kind of traditional pale ale, that traditional IPA, very malty, and it's got are there some dark crystal malts in there? Because like I say, there's like an anisey kind of licoricey component in there that's like
The
that
darkest we go is 60 Lovabund.
really, huh?
Um, I think honestly, a lot of the anise is coming from those hops and the extracted hops, the
Huh.
CO2 extracted hops. Because yeah, when I opened the can on that was just like this. This is different. This is something you don't really you taste in beers anymore.
I like it. It's really in an odd way, it's refreshing in that it's not just another admittedly delicious, bright and citrusy and fruity, hoppy beer. This is something that's just like it's just solid and kind of old fashioned. I think you named it really well. Of course, you're coming off somebody else's recipe, but but
Yeah.
it was executed very well.
Yeah, and the fact that it's up into double IPA strength, I think is kind of fun.
Hmm.
Um, and for me personally, and I think I said this on the episode where we tried the American Vice here, I kind of had this theory that like people in the past didn't know what good beer was because like they're still figuring it out. And you see all these old-timey photos, and it's just like they're not sitting around just really sipping and enjoying these beers, but people drank a ton of beer back then. And so you have to imagine they knew what good beer was and what bad beer was, and there's a reason some of these recipes have survived. And um, I think it's great that this thing approaches IBU levels of like the IBU wars from 15 years ago, and they weren't measuring IBUs back then. So
Right.
it's just like, hey, maybe there's something to be said about something that is so bitter that it kind of just like it's like digestive. It just kind of clears your palate and gets you ready for another drink.
Well, plus back then, I mean, if you were, depending on when you were drinking, what you were drinking, you could be drinking. I mean, we've all had beer off the keg the day after, uh, the day after the party when it's been on a hand pump. We've all had stale beer. We all know how quickly a fresh beer goes stale with the introduction to air. They didn't have CO2 rebreathers back in the day, in these pubs and whatever. And if you, were drinking a fresh beer, it tasted one way, and if it was a couple days later and there was still some beer coming out of that keg, it tasted a different way. So I'm not. So I think that the quality of beer back then had to be just all over the map, and depending on where you were, and how quickly the stock was overturning at these various establishments. So something as hoppy as this, you would think would last longer quality wise. Maybe it wouldn't go as sour as quickly as something that didn't have as many hops in it. So who knows? Who knows what people were drinking back then?
So funny you call that out though. We tapped this beer. We released it at one of our quarterly beer dinners. So we do every 4 times a year. We release five or have five beers paired with five different meals and or dishes. And then I get up and I talk about the beer, and the chef comes out and talks about the food. We released this beer at a dinner on a cask.
Oh,
So we did actually have it in a conditioned cask and then gravity fed. We don't have a beer engine yet to do a fancy pour. We just kind of had it tapped, and we didn't go through the entire beer right away. So um, oxygen absolutely impacts this beer.
mm.
Um, this beer is a different beer when it's called a stale beer, and they would advertise back then. Second day the beer was on, it would go from being fresh to being a quote stale beer, and the price would be lower. But yeah, I'd still imagine, and having had an oxidized version of this beer, I'd still be drinking the stale version of this beer. I wouldn't complain. And then they aged it for a year before tapping. I would think that would be to help clarify the beer and also to help tamp down some of the rough edges of the hops that they were using. I don't think it was
Mm.
so much to help smooth out the alcohol. Um, because they were aging in pitch lined barrels, so they weren't getting that oxidation that you get from a barrel quote barrel aged beer today.
And they
Uh,
weren't getting the vanilla notes or whatever from
no,
the
no,
wood itself.
they would line and I have a friend who another brewer who I almost aged this beer in a pitch line barrel appropriate for the era, but then he told me, oh, by the way, that barrel is like 85 gallons. I was like, oh, I don't have anywhere to actually put that and serve it. But I'm like, oh, I really wanted to age this beer in a era appropriate barrel.
Hey, before I forget, um, it'll give me the opportunity to sip a couple more sips on this beer. Speaking of historical places where beer came from, Adam, you went to Ireland to the Emerald Isle, and you sent some photos to me to make me feel jealous, and I did. So talk about the state of beer in Ireland. Where'd you go? What'd you drink? And what'd you do?
Yeah, so wasn't the first time I went. We went 12 years ago, and then we were actually planning on going to Scotland. And then my wife got on this kick with I forget what it's called, but there's this whole like community of people who find really cheap flights and
Hmm.
the right time of year to go. And we like to go somewhere big for family vacation every year. And she goes, "Well, what about Ireland this year? It's actually cheaper than flying to a lot of the U.S." And then we went the time of year that isn't super expensive. We to her credit, she's was great at planning all of this. We ended up staying in an Airbnb in this real super quaint farmhouse that was very remote. It's a small country, but she found a farmhouse that was still like 20 minutes from the nearest pub, which is unheard of in Ireland. Um, so yeah, I love Ireland. I already knew I did. But comparing, I do have the comparison of 12 years ago versus today. And what has happened in the last 12 years is that that distance between the American craft scene and the Irish craft scene has really shortened. Um, the one thing the Irish, obviously Guinness is everywhere. Heineken is pretty prevalent as well. Just that seems to be like Europe and the UK and Ireland. It seems to be their like lager that it's their Bud Light, whatever. Um, but beyond that, hazies are all over the place. They've taken over. You really just see like stout porter, you see lager, and then you see cider. But then you also kind of just get like a hazy. You don't see like a sour beer. You don't see some like brown ale. You get an Irish red, of course. There's some excellent Irish reds over there. It's not just Smithwick's. It's also there's some others. But the hazies, that was it was interesting. So there's for them a big beer is like 6% alcohol,
Hmm.
which is smaller than most hazies. Um, so I will, so what I will say though is I have never found a session IPA in the US that I've liked, including ones that I've brewed. I always think they're super aggressive, they're unbalanced, they're
Mm.
overly herbal or overly bitter.
You try to put the same amount of hops in a limited
Yeah,
malt bill.
but holy cow, that country has figured out how to make like an amazing beer at 4% alcohol or less, and even their hazies, the best hazies, low ABV hazies I had on that trip.
Hmm.
Um, there were one brewery in particular that maybe if there's show notes, I'll remember the name by then. But, a lot of the hazies were not good. Austin and I were scooping up as many as we could find, and a lot of them are oxidized or water chemistry issues or um, imbalanced. They tasted like bad homebrew attempts. Not to disparage homebrewers, it just I've been there. I made those beers. Um, but then when they hit it right, it was like, oh my goodness, what are we doing wrong?
Hmm.
Um, and then
Did you get
um,
a chance to talk to any of the brewers?
no, no. I threw some stuff out on Reddit in advance, but I always seem to do it wrong when I travel and I don't end up talking to any brewers. Um, last time I went 12 years ago, I found this little pub over in on the West Coast, and I talked to the publican, and I had an Irish Red. It was like the best one of my life, and I told him, I said like, this is amazing. This is so good, and I swear it's the same like 65-year-old surly Irish dude at all these establishments, and he just scowled at me and he's like, "We have a boy that comes in once a week. He makes it all natural." And I was like, "Okay, well, man." And so there's a little bit of that. That same dude, I'm pretty sure, served me a bunch of beer this trip. Uh, I don't know why that stereotype is the way it is, but no, I didn't get to talk to any brewers, but I did. Um, I did get to talk to a lot of the staff, and I talked to one. Austin, I talked to at a bottle shop. Talked to the guy running there, and he kind of talked about how sales and what the trends are in Ireland, and it's hazies.
Huh.
And I will say, after going to Kilkenny and having Smithwick's and Sullivan's Irish Red back to back. I am so ready to brew like a 3.8% alcohol Irish Red at Twinspan, but I know it won't sell until March, so I'm gonna hold off. But like we get in so many of these beers, we get the export version. So there are versions of Guinness and there are versions of these Irish Reds that you cannot get in the US. You
Mm.
have to go over there and try it, and are fantastic. I mean, they 3.8% alcohol beer over here, you never see those, but over there it's commonplace, and they're so good, and you can have four of them in a sitting, and you're still fine. And I say that with like 10% alcohol beer surrounding me.
Three beers that add up to 30% together.
I would kill people if I had this on tap in Ireland. Like people would die. So
All right, so I'm assuming that we go to the Oni trip. Do we go to the Oni triple IPA next?
yeah.
Wow, that beer was good. I did, I'm not drinking all of these beers. I'm just having sips. But this Oni is 10.7% ABV. It's a triple IPA. It's got the picture of looks like a Japanese uh, behorned muscular monster on the label.
It's an Oni.
Is that what it is?
So, yeah. So it's the story behind this beer is as soon as I had my business partners approach me and say, hey, they want to open a brewery, they want me to be the brewer. I was like, oh, they're gonna want me to brew a hazy. And at that point, I was like, never done a hazy. I hate hazies. I've since changed. Um, and so for me, I was like, I'm gonna brew this beer. I'm gonna call it Oni, and it's gonna be an acronym for Obligatory New England IPA. And it is gonna be just dumb with the amount of hops and everything in it. Thankfully, I didn't release that right away, but now again, we're in our fifth year, sixth year, I guess. And I was like, it's time for this triple IPA. And I had done a triple IPA once before on a small scale. And I'm like, I'm gonna do a big one, and I'm gonna save all my money for the hops. So the recipe on this guy is, it's like a third 6 row, a third 2 row, which I almost never use 2 row. I always use American Pills, and then a third oats.
Huh.
And this was one of the worst brew days I've ever had in my life because the sparge kept sticking and it was just like cement. And then because it's obligatory New England IPA, it is just Citra Mosaic. And then I added some yuzu extract to push it in a little different direction. And then there is a little bit of crystal hops in there just to add a little more hot body without too much more budget. Scott had the opportunity to try this beer fresh because I visited him earlier this year and muled down some beer. But yeah, this guy's got some age on him now. He's 8 months old at this point.
You can tell the age because I remember it being a very fresh hop flavor. Definitely Citra Mosaic. I don't think it's moved into barley wine territory yet. It's not hit that age. Nice. It hides the alcohol well. It doesn't seem super strong.
It's a big beer, though.
No, I think it's really nice, and it makes me think that the 1890 people would taste and go, I think you did this wrong because now there's cold IPA and hazy IPA and every kind of IPA and West Coast pills, and I think they're all delicious. But I like, I like when you depart from that a little bit, and it's a really nice beer.
I went back and tasted the 1890 after tasting the Oni. In the 1890, I'm picking up some like tobacco notes. There's still kind of an anisey kind of a thing going on, but I am picking some like tobacco notes. It's just some darker flavors. This one the Oni is. I think I can probably tell that there's some age on it, but it's not in a bad way. It's not as like bright and in your face as like a fresh, New England IPA, but the hops are still bright in it.
I hope so, because there's also, and I didn't mention this yet, but something like 5 or 6 pounds of dry hops per barrel. This was such an expensive beer to brew that I had quite an argument with my business partners.
This seems to be a common theme.
Yeah, but I'm like, guys, look at how well Lunar Cat's selling, how well Better Dwarf's selling, and then I'm like, let me have it. Let me have this little this weird abomination.
How much of this did you brew? What volume?
Oh man, like I brewed 7 barrels, but I only got out of the tank like 4 or 5.
Oh wow!
Because of hop loss and
hop sponges or wort sponges.
So many hops. But also, excuse me, we canned quite a bit of it, and it sold super well. This is one of those beers where I also kind of brewed it because around this time, I was suspecting that consumers aren't wanting to drink really big beers out and about, but they want to drink them at home. And so I'm like, we're going to go can heavy on this release. And sure enough, we sold out of our cans before we sold out of our kegs.
Huh.
And I quickly, and you all know how long it took me to get these beers to you. I quickly pulled these last 4-pack out of circulation, like the day before we ran out of the cans.
Oh.
So,
well, cheers to you.
Cheers. They're the last cans in existence. I hope no one's sitting on these at home. This beer was meant to be drank fresh.
Yeah. So talk about the hopping strategy. I mean, when you think about, I mean, cast your mind back to when you're a home brewer and you're brewing a you know big old beer like this. Um, and again, this is supposed to be a or I assume you're taking the New England IPA strategy. Um, if you were brewing like a 5 gallon batch of this, how would you approach it? As a home brewer.
So one thing different from when I was a home brewer versus pro brewer is not understanding how dangerous and destructive oxygen is to a beer. Um, it is like I knew oxidation was a problem. It is so incredibly destructive to like if you get a ounce of oxygen into your 5 gallon keg, you've ruined that beer.
Mm.
Uh, I've rigged up a twin span. Um, what I think I haven't officially given it a name, but I created this contraption that's like a hop bazooka. You can buy these things that are pressurized hop injectors. I built one, and so it allows me to add hops to a beer without introducing any oxygen. That is critical. That makes such an enormous difference. Um, the sanitizer that's used, I don't know about Star San, but we've actually switched back to using iodophor, a twin span for our kegged hoppy beers because the sanitizer we're using is the sanitizer most brewers are using actually introduces oxidative elements to a beer.
Huh.
So as a home brewer, just like I cannot underscore enough, like if you're gonna spend the stupid amount of money that homebrewers have to spend on hops, like I can buy a pound of hops for good hops for $1. And then homebrewers have to spend $3 for an ounce. I'm like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just oxygen. Just think about how oxygen is going to go into a beer. And then it's a matter of volume then at that point. Like how much are you willing to give up to the hop sponges? How much are you at some point you do tip the scale into like vegetal. You do tip the scale into um actually being able to taste the hops when you really just want those like aromatic compounds.
And along with that, I mean, if you're wanting to have a beer that's 10.7% ABV, you're going to be boiling for a while. You're going to be losing volume to gravity. There are a lot of sacrifices that you've got to be making. If you're going to make a beer this big, just statistically, you don't expect to buy 20 pounds of grain and expect to make a 5 gallon batch of beer using the same techniques that you use to make a 5 gallon batch of beer.
Yeah, at some point you want to thin things out, so you do need to. This is the case for corn sugar or dextrose. Um, I have had a commercial beer from there's a brewery, excellent brewery out in the East Coast. I won't name them because of what I'm about to say. Um, I had their quadruple IPA with 18% alcohol.
Oh God.
18. And it tasted like ethanol and hops.
Uh,
And no fault to theirs.
well, I would
I've
argue.
made some
I would
high
argue that.
alcohol beers.
I would
Well, I
argue
mean,
the opposite. If they made the beer and it tasted like that, I think it's all their fault.
well, no, I mean, I don't think they did anything wrong beyond creating this thing that shouldn't exist.
Again,
Dr. Frankenstein should not
I
have
think that's
created
again.
life
I
from
think that's
corpse
their fault.
parts. But like at a certain point, it's like, yeah, we want to go big. I get it. But you can't do that in the pale beer. You need the roast barley. You need the crystal malt. You need because I've had 18% alcohol stouts that are just fine. They'll kick your butt, but they're just fine. Um, but this beer looked as light as this beer, if not lighter. And I have to imagine the recipe was just like two row, maybe Pilsner and corn sugar, and then a stupid amount of hops. But it was like at some point the flavor of alcohol and the body and mouthfeel effects of alcohol becomes apparent.
Mm.
And you have to, like, if you're going to go into that territory, you better bring something else. And this 18% alcohol IPA was almost just like a spirit with a hop infusion rather
Yeah.
than a beer. Um, so yeah, there was a conscious decision to land at 10.7 rather than 17 point whatever here.
I'm sorry, was there crystal malt in this?
No.
No, okay. But on your oxidation comment, is I've been fermenting in kegs for like 2 years now, and I used an old fermenter, and I was so scared of oxygen when I was moving my lager over, just because I've gotten so used to closed transfers. And I'm thinking, like, what am I pull this siphon out? Like, what am I gonna do to this poor beer? But I think that's huge. Oxidation is huge.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think there's a reason why there was an attempt for a while there. There's this trend of pro brewers aging lagers and foeders. And it's not because the foeders are contributing anything like sourness or acetobacter or anything. It was because foeders, if anything, they contribute to micro-oxidation. Um, so I think that trend kind of died off, maybe rightfully so, because most people are like, in a lager, micro-oxidation, I don't really get. But you also never saw a foeder IPA because
Mm.
that micro-oxidation will
Mm.
Oh,
wreck a beer. And all that, the mo- so from a business owner perspective, and a home brewer, you're looking at costs. Yeah, hops are expensive, even for home brewers or even for pro brewers. Um, you don't want to throw that away just because you're like, hey, what would happen if we added a little bit of oxidation here? No.
Chris Colby, we haven't. I don't think we talked to you about what you think of this beer, and feel free to weigh in on any of the technical aspects of what we've been saying as well.
To me, it strikes me as just the previous beer, like amped up to another level. Like, I realize the hops are different or whatever, but it's got a very similar feel. The hop characters aren't different. It's it's just it's more bitter. It's heavier. It's more alcoholic. And, if you like that, then super. You know? Um, yeah, I mean, it poured vaguely clear. It had a reasonable, for the ABV, it had a reasonable amount of head retention. I mean, and that's one thing I judge beers on. And yeah, it was just, and the hop character is like, it's not like the previous one. It's not like super citrusy, like it's not super Cascade Centennial. It's not piney. It's just bitter. And if you like that, you're really gonna like this beer. And if that's not your thing, then you're not going to.
Yeah, it's a monster of a beer. I mean, there's beyond the name of Oni, and Oni being what they call Japanese ogres or demons. Um, other than the artwork being just totally rad, I think it is. It's there as a warning. It's there to say like, hey, this isn't just like ton of hops and there you go. It's like this is going to be big. It's going to be really full. It's going to be very bitter. It's going to be all the things. And so I was really stressing having not had this beer in a while, and I opened a can alongside you all. Um, that this beer is going to just be something totally different now, and it is a little different, but it's like Scott said, it's not like a barley wine, but also it's not like a lot of triple IPAs I've had, and I've had more than a normal person should have. Because I love hearing triple IPA and be like, oh, okay, what do you think?
Yeah,
Uh,
the artwork on the can is good.
which I know is thrilling on an audio podcast. Um,
You can go on the website.
I, well,
But
I took
but
a
yeah,
pic-
you go on website. It's a cool looking can. Okay.
I
I
took
mean,
a
there's not a cat in a spacesuit on it, but I'm not gonna super fault you for that.
I'm looking now because I don't know if I hit a cat on this one. Sometimes the cat is so tiny that I've had the staff like say like, "Hey, what do you think about the cat on this one?" And they're like, "What do you mean? I've looked at
I
this."
don't see a cat on this one.
no, check the Instagram. I took a picture of both flights. I think it's really good. It's kind of I like it the way it is now. I kind of wish that I had, tasted it 8 months ago, just to compare and contrast. But it's still good. I still like it quite a bit. All right, so there's one beer left in the flight, and I've got to brag on myself that I can speak this coherently. I've been pacing myself throughout this thing because it's supper time. I haven't eaten supper, and I hadn't had a beer in 2 weeks, and here I am, and talking like Regis Philbin, but I've but I've had
Pacing quite proficiently, may
pacing
I add,
quite proficiently.
after this plethora of beers.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so what we got, I got a can in my hand. It says fifth anniversary barrel blend, and it's a cool.
Again, crack team of marketers coming up with the name of that beer. Um, no, so every anniversary, I like to, and our anniversary is always in May. I like to come out with a really big beer.
You don't switch around the anniversary month of your.
We switch around the date a little bit because, I mean, we opened during the peak of the pandemic, so everything's kind of a blur from back then. But our third year, we had a triple IPA. Our fourth year, we had a quad. Our fifth year, I'm like, what beers are out there that have a five? And I couldn't think of one. And then Austin and I were looking around the brew house, and we do have enough room to hold like 7 barrels, like wooden whiskey barrels. Um, and so I was like, well, what if we blended five of our stock together, the majority of our stock together? Uh, and so what you have here is a mix of 5 different whiskey barrels. All of the whiskey barrels are the same. They're all there's a distillery right up the road from us. It's about like a 10-minute drive. They're fantastic. Mississippi River Distilling Company. They're super local. All their ingredients, I want to say, are within like a 50-mile radius of us. They age their whiskey, though, in 30-gallon barrels rather than like the standard 55-gallon. And every single time I call them up and say, like, hey, do you guys have some barrels you want to get rid of? They're almost always like, sure, come on over. And so we love them. We love them to death. Uh, so we had a stock of their Cody Road bourbon. It's their bestseller. And some of these barrels had an English barley wine. Some of these barrels had a extended boil stout. Austin had a wild hair and wanted to brew a beer that took like 36 hours to boil. Something stupid. That's in here. Um, there's also one of our house stout, our Untold Depths, that at least you've had, James. That barrel aged for a while. So it's 5 different beers and 5 different whiskey barrels blended together for our fifth year anniversary. Yeah.
Cheers, by the way, for your
Yeah.
fifth
Cheers.
anniversary.
Cheers.
I would call this Old Blackwater. Keep on rolling. Mississippi River Distillery. That's all right. Wow.
Yep. One of their brewer distillers moved on, and he is now the head brewer at another brewery 2 miles from us, Crawford Brewing. So like, there's this whole Quad Cities isn't huge, but like everyone seems, at least in brewing space, seem to know each other, and there's connections between all of it. So the fact that I can call up their distiller, who I want to say was the first female distiller in Iowa,
Hmm.
and say like, "Hey, Kat, do you have any barrels for me?" And she's like, "Sure." It's just so cool. I'm like, I understand that I'm super super blessed and super fortunate that I can do that kind of thing. Whereas a lot of brewers are like going through brokers and spending an arm and a leg and not sure what the quality they're going to get. I roll up and that barrel still has like that black tar juice in the bottom of the barrel because I just emptied it, and
Mm.
I take it back and I throw a beer into it immediately. Um, so yeah, they're whiskey. If you get a chance to try it sometimes, it's it's making an appearance here as well.
This is really rich and chocolatey, and there's something on the nose. Maybe someone will come up with a descriptor other than just chocolate, but there's something like a dark fruit that I'm not picking out of my brain.
Hear that descriptor because I want to make a note on that. But before I say that, I want to hear if anyone can key in on any fruit character.
Huh.
It's boozy. It's like there's alcohol in this.
Yeah,
There's no doubt.
it's showing its fangs a little bit. It's saying, hey, maybe don't pet me on the belly.
It is.
Molasses.
Yeah, I get some molasses. I get some chocolate notes. I get some, dark grain notes. But mainly, it's like this is a really alcoholic beer.
It's like dark. I don't know if dark treacle is. It's just very, very caramelized sugar. Molasses. Very dark sugar.
I have to imagine that's coming from the beer that was the 36-hour boil. That one, um, I want to say that beer finished at 1060.
Jesus Christ.
But then there is a also the note I was going to make was one of the 5 barrels was our house stout. I kind of forgot about it aged in the barrel for 2 years, and it was so incredibly oaky. The only way we were gonna do that was find some story to spin about this being like an oak beer, or bury it in amongst other beers and sell like all the oak that you're getting. Get any fresh oak that is coming from one of the 5 barrels.
They should have sent a poet. That's all I can think. But
Thank you. I love that
I
movie.
mean, if you're asking us to guess a fruit, I feel like cherry fits in here just barely. Like a tart cherry, a dark cherry is in there somewhere. No, it's a really nice dark stout mixed barrel. I don't know, it's lovely.
I've never drank this beer with the sun still up, so I'm curious about all the descriptors that are being thrown up.
Well,
This is
one.
like after this you're done. You're
Oh
out.
yeah, for sure.
I will say this beer, even if you just have the open can put back in your fridge tomorrow, it's still gonna be really good because I've done it so many times now.
You'd
Like
almost have to.
I
Okay.
have it on keg, which is great because I can pour myself 3 ounces and that's fine. But like a can, and I wish my canning line could have packaged this into like 4 ounce cans or 8 ounce cans because 16 is too much.
Yeah.
But like yeah, just stick it back in the fridge. Tomorrow it's gonna be just as good. Don't worry about it. Um, it'll still be fine.
Smoky persimmon.
Persimmon, okay.
Oh,
I don't think we have persimmons up here. But I love that, and that's something. And I feel like I probably said this in one of the episodes before, but with my staff at Twinspan, I always encourage them, whatever weird memory comes up when you smell something, grab onto it and figure out why that's what came up because the pathway between your nasal and your memories is the shortest.
Well,
And
sure.
so
You can walk
uh,
into a place and say, Matt Giovanisi's grandma's menthol ashtray,
yeah,
and
yeah. So grab onto that, no matter how ridiculous that memory is, and deconstruct it and figure out because if once you identify what that character is forever in your brain, that will be that. So for me, I kept hearing Britannomyces was horse blanket, and I actually grew up next to a stud farm, and I'm like, I don't know what horse blanket smells like. I know what
you grew up on a stud farm.
next door to a
Well,
stud farm. Yeah, every day
well.
the school bus would pick up the kid who lived there, and like we would always that's how we had our sex ed. Um, and So every time someone tells me like, "Oh, this smells like horse plank," I'm like, what are you talking about?" But for me, when I first time I had like a fully Brett fermented beer, my memory that came up was my grandmother's root cellar, and she had like an actual dug out of the earth root cellar. And so now, once I found out that what everyone is saying is horse blanket to me comes out as grandma's root cellar, I'm like, oh, okay, now I can pick Brett out of a crowd.
Yeah.
Whereas some people are struggling to say, what is the Brett? So, and I've seen the same thing with, I forget the name of it. There is an off flavor with some fermentation that expresses as Cheerios. And I have got that. Or some people call that same flavor mousy. That is an off flavor. As soon as you find that out, because that is a rare flavor, grab onto it. Because anytime you smell a beer and you think Cheerios, now you're like, oh, it has this exact thing to it. So it's a lot of telling tasters, don't be embarrassed about the memories, don't be embarrassed about the things that come up in your brain, because your brain knows.
All right, guys, this has been wonderful. And I have all these beers. All right, Scott Housel, thank you very much for joining us again.
Thank you.
Chris Colby, thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me on the show.
And Adam, thanks very much for sharing the beers. It was wonderful, and we can't wait for the next time that we get to sample your work.
Chris, I do have an English Brown and an Ode Brewing to send you next time, and they will be. My plan is before Christmas to get that to you all. So the Ode Brewing is so good right now, and we're just kind of doing like this Solera. We're feeding it. It's developing. It's that'll be fun. And then English Brown.
But technically not an American brown ale, which is what he has the most.
I think he just said brown ale. I don't think he said American brown. So I'm gonna take umbrage with that overgeneralization.
I will drink any beer Adam says to me. I'll give it a try. I'm open-minded. I'm not super
The brownest and Americanist.
I have my ideas, my biases, but if Adam says me a brown ale, I will try it.
I'm gonna send you two, buddy.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, James.
Well, thanks again to Adam for sending the beers, and thanks to Scott and Chris for playing along. I'm a lucky guy. Get to drink good free beers and hang out with friends. Next episode, it's one of my beers, the Broken Rice Japanese Lager. How will it fare? We'll see in a couple of weeks. If you have brewing questions in the meantime, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com. Please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check out our mobile-friendly shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody supporting us through our Patreon page. Special goodies coming your way. Check that out at patreon.com/basicbrewing. So until next time, until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dotson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. In the meantime, stay well and stay tuned. So long.